Okay. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started here with our final showcase presentation session. On the agenda, you'll see Carter Shan's name. We had a last-minute health emergency, not such an emergency, but Carter will not be able to present, it sounds like, so we will just have our other three presenters and skip through those slides. But yeah, without further ado, we have first Bob Graddock back up on the stage from the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. And he'll be talking about pathways to open source ecosystems and open source software more broadly. And then after we skip through Carter's slides, we'll have Amy Hahn Nelson from Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy, or AISP, talking through their updated toolkit for centering racial equity throughout data integration. And finally, we'll have Ayanna Bell from Data You Can Use in Milwaukee. Does anybody hear something? And she'll be talking through their first annual air quality report. So I'll hand it over to Bob.
So hi. So in this one, before I start the slides, I just want to say, you'll see a lot of what I've learned over the last, many years, 17 years at NNIP reflected in this work, which probably none of you have ever heard about. So here we go. Ready? I'm going to talk about our project, Pathways to Enabling Open Source Ecosystems. And the project team is us at Pitt and our friends at DAT here, consulting group, who are active in the CCAN software ecosystem. So what is CCAN? You may be wondering, but CCAN is the largest open source data catalog software in the world, launched almost 20 years ago. Over 600 sites use it, and it's a whole community of developers that we work with, systems integrators, stewards, and advocates to build new features, maintain the software, raise financial support, promote the product, and support users. And so data.gov is one of those sites that use it. But another one is us. We are CCAN users. It powers our open data portal. We have been using it for the last 10 years. We just never knew anything about the community up until this project opportunity popped up. We're like, oh, it's just magic software that happens. But it's not. It's interesting. So the Pathway to Enabling Open Source Ecosystems is a project through the NSF. So we were funded on a phase 1 and phase 2 grant. And we're really looking at addressing challenges of open source communities of national societal and economic importance. You may have seen this graphic before. It's like all of these modern digital infrastructures kind of dependent on one person in Nebraska maintaining this product. And so the CCAN is kind of like that. There's just a core group of folks. And we had a phase 1 grant that allowed us to really understand what was happening in the ecosystem. So we mapped workflows, semi-structured interviews, analyzed data about installations, developed a release timeline. And all of this stuff went into our phase 2 proposal. But what we learned in the phase 1 was really interesting. It was just like digging into a community we've never worked with before. There's a large and committed community of volunteers. They share values of transparency and openness and want to build an open society. They have an affinity for product and each other. There are lots of evangelists that help promote the product. And there are community members there that actually would welcome more participation, but all the people involved are from the global north and men. So we wanted to change that in our phase 2 work. You can read that while we wait. But there are a lot of challenges. So people need support with the product, following it, adoption, maintaining it's a bit of a chore. Long-term users don't connect with others in the ecosystem, so people didn't know that certain users were having trouble with stuff until we talk to them. Extension developers don't keep their code compatible with the latest CCAN version. Over 1,000 extensions are available for the product. New contributors are interested in contributing, but they don't see a pathway. And the open data and open society landscapes changed a lot in the last 5 to 7 years. So our phase 2 grant, which is happening now, we have 5 goals of 1, creating clearly defined onboarding pathways. Number 2, developing new structures for participation. I'll read these here. I'm sorry, that was just like a title slide. So we want to create clearly defined onboarding pathways and welcome a more diverse set of contributors So we're going to revise codes of conduct, community agreements, and really make sure that people are prepared for new volunteers. The next goal is developing new structures for community participation. So going beyond like software contributions, what are other things people can do? Can they have conversations about issues like what we talk about here? The third goal is to really increase adoption and support continued use. So one of the things that we're doing is like developing an ecosystem catalog so that people can connect with others in the ecosystem. Goal number 4 is refresh the business model and fundraising strategy. So we've kind of wrapped this up, and it's really sparked some interesting conversations about governance as well. So that was like really surprising and beneficial. And then the last goal is creating a system of performance measures that we can use to monitor ecosystem health in the future, and Jake's going to support us on that. So a completely different project from what you've seen us do before. And we've got some like really cool international connections. And so I mentioned that ecosystem catalog. So this is like a key infrastructure that we've built with our partners. So there are like actually all of the sites documented with metadata about when the site was installed, what version of software that they're on, things like that. And then we also have this ecosystem or extension catalog, so people that might want to use an extension can see who developed it, how well it's maintained, what version it's compatible with. So this is the site registry I talked about first, like who else is using CCAN, what can I learn about what they're doing, what extensions are they using, what version of software are they on, so they can, like, people can be inspired. So if you're interested in learning more, you can send a project email, you can see me while I'm here. And we can also like help talk about CCAN if you're interested in having a data catalog. So thank you. Do you want me to click through these, or how does this work? Do you want me to give the talk? Yeah. If I click through this, will it automatically advance, or will I be able to? If you keep clicking it, okay. It should just go. Okay. We'll see how this goes. All right, so this, we're sorry Carter couldn't be here. Okay, so it's going. Case studies, community data explorers, youth advisory council reflections, questions. So I hope you have a chance to look at the slides, because there was care put into this, and I want to make sure that like you all had exposure to this by me clicking through. Okay, great. I'm sorry about that. Are you ready? I'm not clicking yet.
It's my first Ignite. So scary. All right, so I hope you've all enjoyed your time in the Queen City. It's been lovely to have you in my hometown. I led the IDS here in Charlotte for many years, so it was part of the initial NNIP application, so it is just so lovely to be here as alum. And as someone who continues to be active in the field. So I'm going to talk to you about work that we've been leading since 2017. So you've probably heard of, maybe you've heard a flavor of this before. So I'm part of AISP. We are a small but mighty organization, as we describe ourselves. Our goal is to support a network of integrated data systems across the US. We're very similar to NNIP, adjacent, there is some overlap. Most importantly, our through line of our work is a focus on ethical use of administrative data. Like many of you in the room, we organize our thinking around the data lifecycle and focus on the parts of the data lifecycle that generally receive less attention. So planning, data collection, data access. Across the data lifecycle in the toolkit, we provide examples of work and action across the US. So in the room, we've got Atlanta, Connecticut, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Charlotte, and the Urban Institute, the DC one, are all represented in the toolkit. In Pittsburgh. So I want to encourage you to check out the main resource. Some of you have told me anecdotally that you haven't looked at it in a couple years. It is really different. You know, we had so much content that we actually ended up splitting it into multiple resources. So we have a whole landing page with lots of different things linked to it. So you have the main toolkit as well as a companion workbook. The premise of the entire body of work is that data infrastructure is infrastructure, right? We can replicate failures of previous infrastructure projects, railroads in the 1800s, highways in 1900s, or we can learn from those mistakes and try not to replicate the harms to certain communities. So This is our best attempt at helping the field do this a little better as we build something new. It's important to note that we are very process-oriented. This work is a CPAR project and is the collaboration of hundreds of people all together. Many of you in this room have been contributors and continue to contribute. The original question from the work also came from our network. They said, hey, I've got this integrated data system. How do I ensure that this system isn't perpetuating harm and inequity, right? So we released the toolkit in 2020 and immediately started receiving requests for technical assistance. We created something called the Equity in Practice Learning Community, which some of you have been a part of. Charlotte has a member, and Bob is one of our faculty for that. We have since supported 11 sites with 30 months of technical assistance, working in site-based teams to figure out how to do this better. And Victor, we have a curriculum. While we remain proud of the original toolkit, we had changes we wanted to make before it even was published in 2020. So we came in raring to go knowing that we would do an update in 2025. We went through a similar process of CPAR. We had a full work group. We had committees and subcommittees and all the things you have to have. As many of you know in here, you were like, oh God, there's another email from Amy. So we had so much great work in the updated toolkit that we ended up creating a spin-off where an entire publication where all it is around participatory governance. Again, some of you in this room are featured here. This has come up a few times in conversations, so I would encourage you, anyone who wants to learn more about participatory governance, here are just some great examples of work in action. So when we published this in 2020, we were really walking with the wind, right? And now in 2025, we are walking against a hurricane, it feels like, it's some days, right? So it's been a really interesting ride. We're very privileged to be situated at the University of Pennsylvania, and so we are still able to do this work using the words, but really our premise has not changed. From day one, the biggest takeaway, no matter what you take from this document or any of the resources that are companion pieces, is that there is something for everyone to do right now in your organization, no matter where you are. All of us can do a better job in centering equity in our work. So many thanks for the opportunity to talk about my favorite project. Some of you are really over me talking about it, probably, and that's okay. So I hope you can carve out some time. If you haven't seen the 2025 version, link to it, download it before you hop on a flight, and it will provide lovely, light, leisure reading. It's not light at all. So thank you very much.
Gotta get my notes together. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ayana Bell from the well-represented city of Milwaukee with data you can use. We wanted to present this project to possibly get some recommendations about how to move forward with some analysis possibilities, and then also ways that we can analyze healthcare utilization after a bad air quality event. So Data You Can Use was approached by the MKE Fresh Air Collective last year to help them analyze data that they had gathered from their air quality sensors. Founded in 2019, the MKE Fresh Air has set up over 20 air quality monitoring stations throughout Milwaukee, which they share real-time data about harmful pollutants with their community residents. The goals of the project were to develop a public dashboard and report that could be used to inform residents about the air quality in their neighborhoods. In addition, MKE Fresh Air was interested in conducting an analysis to understand the relationships between air quality, health, and socioeconomic indicators. For the analysis, there were 3 central questions that we were interested in exploring. 1, how does air quality differ across Milwaukee's neighborhoods? 2, does healthcare utilization for asthma episodes correlate directly with air quality? And 3, is there a relationship between poor air quality and historically redlined areas? Once we started to explore the data, we noticed some challenges that would make answering these questions difficult. Due to their focus on environmental justice, MKE Fresh Air prioritized locating sensors in areas with larger disadvantaged populations who may traditionally lack the access to air quality data or being at greater risk to its impacts. The placement of the sensors did expand data access to these populations, but it also limited our ability to conduct an analysis due to the lack of a sufficient control group. Other issues we encountered were a generally small sample size of 21 sensors, with the start and end times of their data collection being varied. With those challenges in mind, we designed an analysis using the Wilcoxon signed rank test, which compares the median daily AQI value of one of the sensors to the median daily AQI value of the entire group to test for significant differences. This method only tests for difference, and it cannot prove the direction or magnitude. We did this at a monthly level so that we could account for some of the seasonal variations in the air quality data. This table shows a sample of our results from the Wilcoxon test by month, with an X indicating significant difference. We ranked the sensors based on their significance rate, or the proportion of the months that they were found to be significantly different, and then divided that by the total number of months that the test was run. This ranking helps us understand which sensors are often reading AQI levels different from the rest of the sensors, but it cannot tell us the direction or the significance. This means that we can understand what areas are likely to experience different air quality, but we don't know if this air quality is better or worse than the rest of the monitors. To accompany the statistical analysis, we also created summary sheets for each sensor, breaking down their air quality trends for AQI, PM2.5, and days in the various EPA categories. These sheets also incorporated demographic information for the areas surrounding the sensors to highlight populations at elevated health risks. An ArcGIS experience was also developed to provide an interactive dashboard for residents to use to look at the historical trends in air quality in their neighborhood and others across the city. The report only includes 2024 data, while the dashboard has data for 2023 and 24, broken down by monthly averages. The dashboard also incorporates demographic information for reference. When looking at the data for healthcare utilization for asthma episodes provided by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, hotspot analysis revealed that most of the sensors were located in areas with high utilization. For this reason, we decided to wait for MKE Fresh Air to add more sensors with varied locations, which would allow for stronger correlational analysis between air quality and asthma episodes. We face a number of limitations shown on the screen. One of the biggest was that we couldn't begin to understand how poor air quality might be correlated with social disadvantage without understanding the direction and magnitude of any differences between the sensors, which the Wilcoxon test could not provide for us. Next year, we hope to overcome some of these challenges to better answer the questions about the relationship between air quality, health, and social disadvantage. MKE Fresh Air Collective plans to add 10 more sensor locations, which will expand the amount of variety of the data, which will open the door for more analysis options. For the 2025 report and our dashboard update, we plan to incorporate feedback from the community to make them more useful. Thank you, and Data You Can Use is honored to be able to help MKE Fresh Air Collective make this data available to our residents. If you want to check out the air quality report and air quality dashboard and take a look and give us some recommendations, that would be really awesome. Thank you.
Great. Okay, questions? Someone's got to take that first step.
It's back here, Kathy.
I just want to ask a question. Bob, a question about, is it POSE or POSSE? How do you shorthand pathways to...
There's only one S, Jake, so it's POSE. Posse has two S's, P-O-S-S-E. Posse. But it's POSE, Pathway to Enabling Open Source Ecosystems. So that's the project name that the NSF gives to that funding program. So that's why it's POSE. Yeah, it's not Posse. There's just one S. Anyone else have any spell checks that they want to ask about?
Just related to Bob's presentation, there's a adjacent project called JCAN, which is also an open data platform, and it will run right out of GitHub. And you can host it on GitHub pages or Netlify or Azure's free static pages. So anywhere you can have free static pages, you can host an open data portal if you use JCAN. So it's built on similar platform, but if you don't have enterprise GitHub, you'll probably have a lot of limitations on how much you store. So there's that.
I just wanted to know from Bob what you would say your favorite 3 resources on CCAN are.
Do you mean like plugins or features? Or?
Yeah, plugins.
Yeah, I think there are some that are getting pretty interesting. So there are some that our partners on the project have developed around like automated metadata extraction from data sets. So I'm excited about that. And then there's new features coming out. So there's going to be a new version of CCAN being released in the next year or so. I don't have all of those things, but it's going to have a lot more support for projects like ours. And so I'm excited about that. And I think the other thing that is exciting to me is just like we're actually having conversations in the ecosystem about how do we make it less difficult for lower resourced organizations around the world to be able to adopt and implement and maintain the software. So we're having, it's not just a software problem, but it's like, what other kind of technical assistance can we provide through this ecosystem to people in the global south, for example, that might really need an open data infrastructure, but they might just need some help along the way and they don't have the ability to hire a consultant. So how do we organize our work around that? So like there's some really interesting conversations that our partners at the Open Knowledge Foundation are kind of prompting as part of our project governance, and I hope that we're able to, in the next year or so of the project, be able to like really start to do stuff in that area.
This, I think, is more of a comment for Ayana, but the Baltimore Social Ecological Collaborative is doing similar work. They were DOE funded. I think they got their project cut short, but they still have a year left. They cited their air quality and also weather stations in communities, like they collaborated with them prior to kind of the placing of it, but I think that they would be useful for talking through analysis and all of that. And I also as we are doing analysis about sort of redlining and spatial overlaps with environmental justice, I think it's very important to separate historical causality in that, and I think that redlining is often a very important tool when we talk to communities, when we sort of talk about the role of history in segregation, but very frequently in particularly environmental analysis, so I'm going to throw my own friends under the bus. We say, oh, well, we don't have a lot of tree canopy in Baltimore, and it aligns with redlining. Look at this thing. And I just offer anyone who's doing that type of work to really think critically about what that thing actually is and how we are talking about history in those contexts, because I don't often think it's as straightforward as we hope for.
Thank you.
Hi, this question is for Ayana and the project. It sounds like some of the maybe limitations could have been mitigated had the partner maybe come to you while they were rolling out the project or even before they did that. And so I'm wondering if you've, at your organization, had much success about educating potential partners about the need to bring your organization in earlier while they're even conceptualizing of a project where they think they might need analysis down the line.
Yeah, I don't think we've had conversations about like maybe starting projects earlier or maybe laying out the scope earlier, but through the process of this project, we've definitely raised some concerns that we've had about, what analysis looks like and how we might need to adjust like maybe sensor locations or other aspects to get a more clear picture of our results, and then possibly like what analysis might be better useful for the things that we're looking for.
Yeah, I have a question for Amy.
How did you get back there?
I'd like to know like what the thing that you were most excited about seeing in this version of the guide that was missing from the first one. Thank you.
I actually realized there was I actually wrote notes, and then I forgot to say one of the important things I wrote down. The thing I'm most excited about is when we were sourcing work in action. So we use the term work in action because when we were talking to you all in sites across the US, they were like, do not call me an exemplar, do not call me like a gold standard, we are crap, we're doing bad work. And meanwhile, we're like, but you're doing it better than anyone else. And they're like, yes, but it's not enough. We could be doing more, right? So that's why we very purposefully use the term work in action for all of our work. So when we were looking for work in action in 2019, we actually had a lot of trouble sourcing work in action. We found 13 examples nationally when we were doing the scan for this round. We had so many examples that we actually had to create like an inclusion criteria, and we had a whole committee where that's all they did was evaluate work in action. So to say that the field has exploded in use cases around centering equity in data work is an understatement. So that's the piece that makes me the most excited. Thanks for asking, Bob.
So I have a little bit of a related question. Where is the demand coming from? Is it governments? Is it academia? Is it philanthropy and nonprofits? The work is exploding. Who's asking for this?
Well, in September of 2025, I'm talking in the UK next week and to Canada. So that is the irony here. We still get a lot of international interest in this. But it is everywhere. We also have very intentional technical assistance opportunities where we intentionally open up things to individuals rather than institutions. So we say like, hey, if you can't join with your work email, like give us a Gmail address, you can have access to all the same stuff. So there is still a tremendous amount of interest. We have not been, like our funders have not told us to pause anything. They haven't put their name on it anymore, understandably, right, because of their 501c3 status. But we are not being told to pause by anyone. We are carefully de-identifying in some places for use cases. But there's still, this conference season, I think I'm doing a longer version of this content, I do a lot of workshops on this content, a lot of 60-minute, 90-minute, 2-hour presentations on this. And I'm doing, I think 12 of them in the next 2 months. So it's, we actually have a whole series that Bob leads for National Network 2 around data literacy for data stewards. Paul is in here somewhere. The Data for Social Impact people and the folks in St. Louis have run a whole series of networks that are available. So there's still a lot of interest. You just can't talk about it in very public ways anymore. Yeah, and if you look at the resource, you'll see it's meant to be used today. A lot of these aren't big ideas, they're tiny tweaks, and that's very intentional. Or it's inspirational. We all can't do the work that's been done in Milwaukee or in Charlotte, but you can learn a piece from it,
Okay, if there are no other questions, let's give a hand to all of our presenters.